a funny thing, memory. It's not a straight line, is it? It's more like a collection of rooms you can wander into. Some are bright and warm, full of laughter. Others are a bit colder, a bit darker. I find myself wandering into the cold rooms less and less these days. There's little warmth to be found there. But this evening, I came across this old photograph. He gently turns the frame towards the camera. It's a faded black and white photo of a smiling young woman. My mother, Diana. I never met her. She left this world just as I was entering it. And looking at her smile, it makes me think of the long road it took to find a home. A real one. My story isn't one of high drama. There are no villains, not really. Just people. Flawed people making flawed choices, and a boy who had to live in the spaces between them. After my mother passed, my father, Gregory, was a man adrift. I think my very existence, my face, was a constant, painful reminder of his loss. He remarried when I was very young to a woman named Susan. They soon had a son of their own, my half-brother, Ben. And in that new family, a family built on the foundation of moving forward, I was a piece of the past they couldn't wait to put on a shelf. It wasn't outright cruelty, you understand. That would have been easier to fight against. It was a quiet, pervasive neglect, like a constant draft in a cold room. It was the feeling at Christmas, when Ben would get the shiny new bicycle he'd been dreaming of, and I'd get a book. A nice book, mind you, but I saw the difference. I'd watch from the window as my father helped Ben steady the handlebars on the snow-dusted lawn, their laughter fogging in the winter air. I was an observer, not a participant. It was the way Susan would say, "Ben needs this for his development," a phrase that always quietly implied that my own development wasn't quite as important an investment. I learned to live in the quiet spaces of that house, the dusty attic room, the forgotten corner of the living room. I learned not to ask for much. I learned that my place was to be grateful for the roof over my head, even if it never truly felt like my own. My only real connection to that other brighter world was my grandfather, Will, my mother's father. A titan of a man who had built a construction empire from the ground up in Chicago. He was always busy, a man of steel and concrete, but his phone calls were my lifeline. I remember one rare visit when I was about 10. He took me out for the entire day. We went to a real diner, not a fast food place, and he ordered me the biggest steak on the menu. He looked me in the eye when I spoke, really listened, and asked questions about school, about my dreams. For one afternoon, I felt like the most important person in the world. That brief, warm memory had to sustain me through long, cold months. On the phone, he'd always ask, "How are you, son? Are they treating you right?" And I'd always say, "I'm fine, Grandpa. Everything's fine." What else could I say? I wouldn't tarnish that one bright spot with the dull gray of my reality. I didn't want to be a burden. He always spoke of my mother, of her dream for me to have a good life. "When you come of age, Dorian," he'd say. He always called me by my full name. "I have a gift for you, a proper start, something from your mother and me." I held on to that promise like a secret treasure, a key to a door I couldn't yet see. When I turned 21, the promise took shape. Grandpa Will sent my father a substantial sum of money, $400,000, an almost unimaginable amount. It was to buy a specific house in a new, respectable neighborhood, a 3-bedroom home with a small garden. "This is for Dorian," he had written in a letter. A foundation for his future. His name on the deed. Make sure he is settled and secure. But I never saw that house. Not as mine anyway. Instead, my father and Susan moved. They moved into a beautiful new home, the very one Grandpa had described. They told me it was a wise investment for the family. And then the strangest thing began to happen. They started inviting me over for holidays, seating me at their new, grand dining table. They even began pulling me into family photographs, something they had never done before. I remember standing awkwardly at the edge of the frame, Susan's hand briefly on my shoulder, a forced smile on my face. It felt strange, like I was an actor playing the part of a beloved son for an unseen audience. I now know. That's exactly what I was. Those photos were for Grandpa, quarterly proof that they were one big, happy family, living together in the house he had so generously provided for me. The truth didn't come out in a storm of shouting. It was much quieter and much more heartbreaking. Grandpa Will wasn't a fool. He was a businessman who dealt with contracts, details, and the fine print. 2 years after he sent the money, during a routine review of his finances with his accountant, the line item came up. He simply asked for a copy of the deed for his tax records. A simple, professional request that unraveled everything. My father, of course, couldn't produce it. Not with my name on it. I wasn't there for the phone call. Grandpa, in his wisdom, shielded me from that initial explosion. But he arrived from Chicago the next day. He didn't come to their new house spitting fire. He came to my tiny rented apartment, the one I paid for with my wages from a night job at a supermarket. He stood in the doorway, this powerful, imposing man, and looked at the peeling paint, the worn-out furniture, and the single hot plate I used for cooking. His face, it was a mask of cold, quiet fury I had never seen before, and have never seen since. He didn't rage. He just said, "Pack your bags, Dorian. You're coming home with me." That was the day my life truly began. In Chicago, Grandpa didn't just give me a luxurious room in his mansion. He gave me something far more valuable, a purpose. He put me to work in his company, not as his grandson, but as an apprentice. "You'll earn your place just like I did," he said. I started from the bottom. I learned to read blueprints, the language of creation. I learned the weight of steel and the smell of fresh concrete. I went to university at night, my mind hungry for the knowledge I had been denied, and studied to be an engineer, the dream I thought was long dead. I remember the first time a senior engineer, a man with 20 years of experience, turned to me in a meeting and asked, "Dorian, what do you think?" The feeling of my opinion mattering, that was worth more than any house. I received a letter from my father a few months later. It was full of regrets, excuses, about the grief of losing my mother, about wanting what was best for his new family. He said the house was legally mine, that he would sign it over. I talked it over with Grandpa, sitting by the fire in his great library. For the first time, I felt the power of choice. "I don't want it, Grandpa," I told him, the words tasting of freedom. "That house is a monument to a life I no longer want. It's not a home. It's a lie. Let's sell it. The money belongs to you." We did. He put that money into a trust for my education and my future. My real future, the one built on my own merit. I heard, through the grapevine over the years, that things didn't go well for them after Grandpa cut them off completely. My father lost his job, Susan struggled, and Ben, Ben, who had never known a day of hardship, had to learn the lessons I had learned as a child. I never felt joy in their downfall. There's no victory in witnessing a collapse. It just felt hollow. I saw my father not as a monster, but as a weak man, terrified of the ghost of his first love and unable to face her son. I saw Ben as a victim of a different kind of neglect, the kind that cripples you with too much, leaving you with no strength to stand on your own. Now, all these years later, sitting in this quiet house that I built with my own two hands, I look at my mother's picture. I think she would be proud, not of the money or the success, but of the man I became. A man who learned that a home isn't just a roof over your head or a name on a deed. It's a place where you are seen, a place where you are valued, and sometimes, if you can't find one, you have to find the strength, the courage, and the grace to build that place for yourself.